speaker for today's debate between SMK Jalan Empat and SMK onward. I will be assisted by the timekeepers Muhammad Faris Daniel bin Rosli and Muhammad Hazif bin Muhammad Izzat. Judging the debate is the panel of adjudicators led by Chief Adjudicator Wan Shanti, anak perempuan K. Aramagun. The other members of this esteemed panel are Wan Lau Ah Yok, Wan Kong Bin Teng, Wan Bunit Kong, Wan Yashida Yashim. I will now introduce the debaters for today's debate. In the government, we have Adila Rashida Ashari. Next, we have Premdas Devan. And finally, we have Yana anak perempuan Jaya Gobi. The non-speaking members of the team are Hirania Raha, anak perempuan Tani, and Sarah Atina Abu Bakar. In the opposition, we have Krisna Devan, anak lelaki Vedaya Devan. Next, we have Bryan Tan Yuhan. Finally, we have Othniel Panyih anak Devan. The non-speaking members of the team are Charmayne Yen and Arissa Munira binti Panyih Indra. Now, I will read out the rules of the debate from the primary speeches. For the primary speeches, each debater is given 8 minutes to deliver his or her speech. At the end of the 8th minute, the bell will be rung twice, signaling that the time allowed for the debater's oration is up. During the debater's presentation, POI or points of information may be offered by their opponents between the 1st and 7th minute. The debater may choose to accept or decline it. The timekeeper will ring the bell once at the end of the 1st minute, and the card displaying the amount of time remaining, which is 7, will be shown. This indicates the beginning of the time allocated for POI. At the 7th minute, the bell will be rung once, and the card displaying the number 1 will be shown, signaling the end of the time allocated for POI. Debaters offering points of information are required to raise his or her hand and to stand when giving a point of information. Debaters are reminded that a time limit of 15 seconds is allowed for each POI. A gentle reminder to all debaters: if you are required to offer and accept at least 2 POIs, no heckling, barracking, or harassment is allowed at any time during the debate. After all debaters have presented their case, the team will be given 3 minutes to prepare for the reply speech. Only the first or second debater will be allowed to present the reply speech. Each team will be given 4 minutes to deliver the reply speech. The bell will be rung once at the 3rd minute of the reply speech to indicate that there is 1 minute left to deliver the speech. At the end of the 4th minute, the bell will be rung twice to signal the end of the time allocated for the debater to deliver his speech. No POI may be offered during the reply speech. The audience is requested to switch off their headphones or put it in silent mode so that there will be no distraction or interruption during the debate. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I now call upon Adila Rashida Ashari, the first debater from the government, to present her case.
when you play video games, you are a part of that virtual world. Plus, they are also very interactive because when you do something, your opponent or even the game itself will respond. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is a very important feature that makes video games very prone to be addictive. Now, I also gathered some facts to prove to you how addictive video games can be. First of all, a research done by Dr. Soraya Noisley. Dr. Soraya Noisley, a psychiatrist in Los Angeles, she stated that video games addiction is actually a modern-day psychological disorder. And also another thing, Douglas Gentile, a research psychologist from Iowa State University, stated that based on his research recently, he found out that more than 3 million students actually have severe addiction to video games. And for your information, ladies and gentlemen, he only took into account 1/4 of the states, ladies and gentlemen. This just proves how addictive video games can be. And there's also a lot of cases proving how video games can not only lead to behavioral issues but also lead to death. Chuang, an 18-year-old boy, actually passed away, ladies and gentlemen, after 40 hours of playing Diablo 3, a video game, non-stop in an internet cafe in Taiwan. So this just proves how addictive video games can be. Now, yes? Yes, thank you for asking. Now I'm actually going to go into my point, which is how this addiction can then lead to behavioral issues. So please listen carefully. Ladies and gentlemen, when a student or even an adult is addicted to video games, he or she is said to be possessed, I repeat, possessed by the virtual world and lose contact with the real world. And this, ladies and gentlemen, will cause paranoia. Now, the validity of this fact, please hold on. The validity of this fact has been proven by a research done by Victoria L. Dunkley, who is a board-certified child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist, stating that electronic screens, particularly interactive ones such as video games itself, actually increases dopamine, which is a chemical related to paranoia, anxiety, and all moods and stuff. So dopamine excess in the certain parts of the brain can lead to psychotic symptoms such as paranoia, confusion, and so on. So ladies and gentlemen, when a student is paranoid, he or she is stated to, hold on please, is stated to be mentally unstable, which will then lead to behavioral issues. Yes?
I don't see that as a behavioral issue, but that as a disease, not a behavioral issue.
Okay, thank you. Well, Mr. Opposition, for your information, when you're paranoid, you are restricted. Your mind itself is restricting you from making rational decisions, thinking state. Therefore, from that on, you are definitely, for sure, without a doubt, going to make outrageous behaviors. Therefore, that is actually a behavioral issue by itself. I heard the answer to yours. Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, breaking of glasses, windows, social isolation,
the opposition to present his case.
People who believe video games leads to behavioral issues among students are people who have irrational thinking. With that, it is a pleasure from the opposition side to bid a very good afternoon to our handsome Mr. Speaker, our distinguished educators, my trustworthy opponents, my fellow comrades from the opposition side, timekeepers, and not to forget members of the noble house present today. In today's debate arena, where emotional video games can lead to behavioral issues in students, we from the opposition side totally oppose to this motion and agree that the motion should fall by the end of this debate. But before I move on, please allow me to specify on what the opposition side will be doing for today. Standing here boldly as your team of opposition, I will be responsible in first rebutting whatever that has been said by our respected Prime Minister. And besides, I'll be also redefining on what we, the opposition side, believe this motion of today means. Besides, I will be providing you with a span, the pillar of why we oppose this motion before giving up the opposition's first point under the key phrase of federal rules. And my handsome deputy chief of opposition will be unveiling two mind-changing points under the key phrase of entertainment media and age verification. And acting as the emperor of rebuttal, my highly energetic third speaker will be responsible to rebut, refute, and bulldoze through all the senseless points that was brought up by the government side. Moving on, rebutting whatever has been said by the Prime Minister. She gave a stand that video games can lead to behavioral issues because it is addictive. So we can conclude here that whatever she said, when it is addictive, it causes behavioral issues. And let me explain one thing. Reading books can be addictive. So does it cause behavioral issues among students? So that's why I say just stand does not stand at all. And she also gave a point under the phrase of paranoia. If they say that people who play video games can get paranoia, 3/4 of us will be in the mental hospital, not sitting here listening.
POI?
Yes.
Now you stated that if people read books, then they're going to have behavioral issues. But I specifically state that why video games is very addictive is because it is very interactive. Is book interactive? Please justify that.
It causes behavioral issues.
POI?
It's addictive. Yes.
I clearly explained what the addictive means here. So therefore, you should have listened to me and you should have understood my explanation.
Yes, I understand what you're saying. So I'm saying the addiction caused by the video games and the books is two different things. Addiction is addiction. It holds the same meaning. It's addiction. Moving on to my point. Redefining emotion. We believe that video games is an electronic game played by means of images on a screen, on a video screen, kids. The one which parents, I repeat again, this is the parents' influence on their kids. Let me give you an example which explains this situation in the simplest way. Let's say we have two students, student A and student B. Both of them are similar in terms of their gender, level of intelligence, interest, and also their age. The only difference is that they came from two different families and both of them play the same game. But at the end of the day, one does know how to opt the game and rationale what is good and what is bad in the game, and the other one just blindly get influenced by the game. So this is why most people see that video games cause behavioral issues among students. But what they didn't realize is how can the other person? Yes.
So basically what you're trying to say is you're blaming the parents, not the video game.
Yes, hold on. I am blaming the parents. Hold on, please. That's why they say that video games is leading to behavioral issues among students. But what they didn't realize is how come the other person, the student A, did not get influenced, but the first one got influenced. So that's why I say that the role of parents is very important, because parents are responsible in teaching their kids, giving the right influence on what is good and what is bad, and they are responsible in keeping their kids away from being led into behavioral issues. Because we must all understand one thing, as I said earlier, video games hold a fixed percentage of influence. The one which parents are the parents' influence, but yes, and the influence that parents give in their kids on what is right and what is wrong has to be higher than the percentage of influence that video game carries. So is this the fault of video games? Quoting another example, parents of student A would have played a better role compared to the parents of student B. That's why one is still in the good part and one is not in the good part. So we can't say yes.
So in a way, are you agreeing with us that video games do lead to behavioral issues?
We do not agree. Because if we start blaming video games, we have to start blaming all the other things in this world. We have to start blaming movies, cartoons, contains violence. So are we saying that kids, our students, can't watch videos or cartoons? No, because if we say yes, they are depriving their rights of freedom and entertainment. So that's why we, from the opposition side, say that video game does not lead to behavioral issues, as it only acts as an entertainment medium. If there is someone to blame, it will only go to the parents of the student themselves, because they did not give the right influence and they didn't carry out their role as efficiently as considered it. And the case was really proven with the example of those two students. That's why parental role is very important in keeping their kids away from behavioral issues. So we, from the opposition side, stand on the strong ground that video game does not lead to behavioral issues among students, simply because it acts as an entertainment medium, and if there's anyone to be blamed, it must go to the parents themselves. With that, back to Ogo. Thank you.
I now call upon Premdas Perada, the second debater from the government, to present this case.
A very good afternoon to the Honorable Chairperson, wise adjudicators, members of the opposition, members of the government, and members of the floor. The motion today is this House believes that video games can lead to behavioral issues in students. I repeat, video games can lead to behavioral issues in students, ladies and gentlemen. Our stand for today is video games can lead to behavioral issues in students because it is very addictive. ladies and gentlemen, I would like to rebut the point stated by the first speaker of the opposition, ladies and gentlemen. Before this, all three debaters of this team rebutted that paranoia is not a behavioral issue, ladies and gentlemen. The definition of behavioral issue is the problems in the manner in which one behaves. In this case, the problem is paranoia. Ladies and gentlemen, the first speaker of the opposition said parental role is the factor and not video games, ladies and gentlemen. But what he said, the point that is you are saying parental guidance is required, you are directly agreeing with the motion, because if video games really do not cause behavioral issue, why is parental role even required, ladies and gentlemen? Ladies and gentlemen, moving on to my points, ladies and gentlemen. Video games increases aggressive thoughts, feelings and behaviors, ladies and gentlemen. By getting addicted to a game, when a person is playing the game, he applies his full focus in the game. So, when he is faced with a distraction, he retaliates aggressively, ladies and gentlemen. An example, a 22-year-old mother in California cracked a 4-year-old son's skull because he distracted her while she was playing a non-violent game called Farmville. Yes.
Your example did not refer to students. Our motion for today is this House believes that video games can lead to behavioral issues in students. You stated about a mother.
Ladies and gentlemen, that 22-year-old student, 22-year-old mother is a student. Ladies and gentlemen, regardless if the game is violent or non-violent, ladies and gentlemen, it still can stimulate aggressive behavior, ladies and gentlemen. So, when a student is posed with a failure or a challenge in a game, he or she will, if he fails to accept that challenge, he or she will be frustrated, ladies and gentlemen, thus increasing in aggressive behavior, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on to violent video games, ladies and gentlemen. Violent video games are likely to identify with the violent character, ladies and gentlemen. So, if you are, in simple words, if you are playing a violent video game, it is certain that you are the violent character in the game, regardless of your nature, if you are good or bad, ladies and gentlemen. This can cause behavioral issues in students because this violent video game, if you are a first-person shooter, you will have the same visual perspective as a first-person killer, ladies and gentlemen. So, if you are a third-person shooter, you will have a more distant visual perspective as a killer, ladies and gentlemen. This proves that it increases aggressive behavior because it gives the experience of being a killer, ladies and gentlemen. Yes.
That's why they have age verification in which game can be played by students and which game cannot be played by students.
Ladies and gentlemen, he is stating that the rules, he is talking about rules now, ladies and gentlemen. For your information, today's computer ICT malls, all games, regardless of the ratings and the adult content, ladies and gentlemen, these are easily accessible by students, ladies and gentlemen. You are denied. Ladies and gentlemen, so these video games actively influence players. In this game, in these terms, denied. In these terms, violent video games actively influence players, thus increasing in aggressive behavior, ladies and gentlemen. A group of third-year psychology students in the University of Carolina conducted a comprehensive review involved of 136 articles reporting 381 effects involving over 130,000 participants all around the world. These studies show that video games promote aggressive behavior and increase physiological arousal such as increase in heartbeat rate, increase in blood pressure and also adrenaline rush. When these factors combine, it will decrease helping behavior in the students and also feeling empathy in the students. Thus, aggressive behavior, then behavioral issue is aggressive behavior is promoted, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, more violent behavior is stimulated and applied in real life, ladies and gentlemen. Denied. Ladies and gentlemen, video games can cause academic performances to go downhill. I repeat, to go downhill. Before I relate video games to academic performances, I would like to state a thing or two about video games addiction, ladies and gentlemen. plays a game, whereas response is represented with the interaction between the gamer and also the games, ladies and gentlemen. Uniform reinforcement occurs when this person is uniformly attracted to the same game, while constantly playing the same game is a form of repetition, ladies and gentlemen. This becomes a behavior, thus leading to behavioral addiction, which is also a behavioral issue, ladies and gentlemen. Video games is a form of entertainment that can cause behavioral addiction, ladies and gentlemen. This behavioral addiction causes studying and reading to be understimulating. So, for an example, when a teacher teaches in class, this addiction will cause the student to be constantly thinking of the game, which results in lack of focus in studies. When there is a lack of focus in studies, indefinitely academic performances is affected, ladies and gentlemen. This addiction causes poor time management to occur in the life of the students, ladies and gentlemen. Once this person is in a behavioral addiction, there are no room for productive activities such as studying and reading, ladies and gentlemen. The research done in Stanford University confirmed that 98% of victims of behavioral addiction are involved in late night gaming. This late night gaming will result in lack of focus in studies, and which results will be the downfall of academic performances. So, before I take my seat, I would like to reaffirm our stand for today, which is video games can lead to behavioral issues in students because it is very addictive. Thank you.
I now call upon Bryan Tan, the second debater from the opposition, to present his case.
Right, before I start my speech, can everyone hear what I say? Can everyone hear? Alright, it's okay. So, a very good morning, very good afternoon, I bid to the awesome Mr. Speaker, to the respected opposition, but misled opposition, government, and to my trustworthy opposition side, and to all members of the Honourable House, and not to forget the fair and wise adjudicators that are going to adjudicate how we speak today. I, my second speaker from the opposition team, will be prevailing two mind-changing points under the key phrase of entertainment medium and age verification. But first of all, it is my pleasure to correct what the government has just said. The Prime Minister has just said that one of the effects of addiction to games are paranoia. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to remember one thing: paranoia is a disease, not a behavioral issue. So therefore, her points cannot be accepted. Yes, we are all addicted to video games, and she said that it causes death, but death is just a minority. As if it's a majority, all of us in this hall would be dead by now. Why lose contact with the real world? And games are real world based. Sorry, I'm not selecting any POI. Football and war are related to reality. So therefore, when we play games like football and we play games like Call of Duty, it exposes us to the real world and what is happening. And yeah, she said aggressiveness also occurs, but aggressiveness is just a small contribution. If we are, then I will be stabbing her with a pen as she rejects my POI. Ladies and gentlemen, now going on to the Deputy Prime Minister, he also said that, yeah, we all get distracted because of the video games, but ladies and gentlemen, if we are all distracted by video games? Do you think there will be top classes? Do you think that we will have leaders today? Yes.
He clearly stated not all of us are distracted. We are just trying to prove that video games can lead to behavioral issues. We're not saying it leads to behavioral issues in everyone.
Yes, you do have a point there, but your answer will be my next statement. So, ladies and gentlemen, yes, the lack of focus in studies and students are caught up by the minorities. With this, everyone's academic performance would decrease. So now I'll now move on to my first point. Under the key phrase of entertainment media, ladies and gentlemen, we all need entertainment in life, despite you are a teacher or what. But today we are mainly focusing on students. As students, entertainment is very, very important. This is why video games are created. It gives relaxation to the mind. How do we say so? Relaxation means that it releases stress into everyone's mind. But how? When we play games, we can do impossible things. We can learn new things. So are you still stating that it is a behavioral issue? I guess not, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, we don't get behavioral issues, we learn more things. For example, I gave a game like earlier like FIFA and also Call of Duty. FIFA, when we play, we can learn new techniques of playing football. We can dribble, we can do all the skills that's impossible. Sorry, I'm not accepting a voice. And yeah, it is stated that when we play Call of Duty, it involves shooting and basically it provides and also helps us in our eye and hand coordination movements. Games as I said is a relaxation of mind. So is it a behavioral issue? Yes.
In my opinion, I would rather play sports, increase hand-eye coordination, and be physically healthy rather than wasting time playing video games.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, but that is her choice, not our choice. So now I will now move on. Ladies and gentlemen, when we play games, it involves comedy, it involves setback, we cry, we laugh, we solve riddles. So basically, is that behavioral issue? I don't think so. We are enjoying ourselves. It's basically when we play games. No, sorry. So when we play games, we actually enjoy playing video games, and that is why there is nothing to do with behavioral issues. And unsurprisingly, we play video games, and we are able to make new friends. How? We can make friends internationally. We can play Dota, Arissa, all these kind of things, actually helping us to mix around with the whole world. So is there any behavioral issue in that? I don't think so. So and you can see that games will always involve behavioral issues and implement them into us. But have you ever thought that one of the major causes are friend influence? When friends, they use flowery language like the F word, the B word. So are we affected by it? Of course we are affected by it.
Are you alright?
Yes.
You're saying about friends, our motion is about video games.
Okay, yes, you are supporting emotion today, but I am now explaining there are other causes that affects behavioral issues, not only video games. That friend may also smoke and use bad languages and also, use vulgar languages. And now I will move on to my second point, the key phrase of age verification. Everything in life that we do has its age limit and has the beginning of the age of playing it. So does games. Doesn't affect behavior, as every game has already warned the user that it is appropriate for certain students. For example, like FIFA, it is stated by the ESRB, it's an electronic software rating board. It says that child which is above 3 and above are able to play this game. So we automatically know that games have already warned us that we are not supposed to play in that game. If we are playing the game, that means we are disobeying the rule, and it is not the game that affects us, it is our mentality, it is our parents. So and we say that if games like Crisis Creed, the blockbuster games, when we play, it has already shown the ESRB rating, which is the 18 plus thing. So if you are going against, if you are playing, that means your parents or yourself are not carrying the responsibility that we should. And one more thing, ladies and gentlemen. Game owners or game retailers, they should control the production of games. They do know that some students will often play games which are 18 plus and which are each are only 12.
You are.
It is denied. So it is stated that why are we the ones who are to be why are the video games are the ones to be blamed? when the game retailers are releasing games which are 18 plus to underage students because they are anything of profit. They don't care what we are inheriting, what languages we are using. They just simply sell this as long as they get the profit. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, it has been clearly proven why we, from the opposition side, clearly disagree with the motion for today, which is this House believes that video games can lead to behavioral issues in students. And yeah, the stand given by others also should be supported, and it has clearly been proven with what my chief opposition and I have just said. So therefore, I rest my case. Thank you.
I now call upon Jalan, third debater from the government, to present her case.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A very good afternoon to the honorable adjudicators, accurate timekeepers, members of the opposition, fellow government, and members of the floor. The motion for today is, this House believes that video games can lead to behavioral issues. As the government, we support this motion 100%. Video games can lead to behavioral issues because it is very addictive. As the third speaker, I'll be rebutting the points presented by the second and the third speaker of the opposition. The second speaker talked about age verification. Ladies and gentlemen, first let me clarify to you what we are here today to do. We are trying to prove to you that video games can lead to behavioral issues. We are not saying that it leads to behavioral issues in every single person it plays. Those who choose to break laws, for example, playing it at the late night, why would they actually follow these age verifications and the specifications put up by, for example, the ESR ratings? When you've already made a decision to break one rule, why follow another? Yes.
So, are you playing video games or are you playing the students to break the rules?
First of all, my first speaker has already explained how video games can be addictive. Not can be, is addictive. And it's up, in the end, it's all about the video games, ladies and gentlemen. The second speaker also talked about video games for sports. You gave the example of FIFA and he talked about dribble. First of all, dribbling is a technique in football. You cannot learn how to dribble through video games because how do you play FIFA? It's basically buttons which you use to navigate the player around the field. Whereas if I play football, let me finish. If I was to play football in real life, I would learn from that. Ladies and gentlemen, our brain is wired to learn through experience. When we play a sport, let's say I want to go play football this evening, hold on, and I want to go home and rest. That moment after playing sports, let me finish. After I finish playing the sports, that time of rest, during that time, my brain will actually go through what activities I've done, and from that I learn. That is learning through experience. Whereas through FIFA, you're not going to learn anything except for how to click buttons. Yes.
You're right. Yes. Yeah, we do consider the fact that FIFA is, but it doesn't really shows that it leads to behavioral issues. Yeah, there are statistics showing that, football skills increases.
I understand what you're trying to say. He's a very good example. He's talking about FIFA. The fact that he chooses to play a video game over real life sports already proves that he has a behavioral issue. One example, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on. It is a virtual world, ladies and gentlemen. I would rather do something in the real world. Yes.
I guess you have not heard of the human capability of getting information by looking at things. Thank you.
I'm talking, you give an example of football. You're not going to learn by looking. The only way to get better in a sport is by playing and by learning and by doing it yourself. I've already accepted 2 PIs, thank you. Again, you were talking about us, talking about majority, how 2/3 of us will be in the mental association or whatever it is. But we have already stated, my first speaker, my second speaker, we have already clearly stated, we're not saying every one of us, we're just saying that video games can, I repeat, can lead to behavioral issues. Another thing, he was talking about addiction as in being a certain word. In English language it is, but when you go deeper into the science of addiction, we have so many kinds of addictions. Substance addictions, behavioral addictions like video games. There are many types of addictions. If I were to spend 2 hours reading a book, that is not considered addiction, because the main meaning of addiction here is I've already accepted 2 PIs, thank you. The main meaning of addiction is a behavior that is repetitive that can lead to harm. So if I were to read a book for 2 hours, I'm not going to harm myself. But if I were to play a video game, which is, in my opinion, not, and every one of us, we know that it has no benefits. Even if it does, you have to go through all that violence just to get one bit of benefit. Whereas I choose the safer way by using books, reading, and going to school. I've already accepted 2 PRIs, thank you. Another thing is he's blaming the parents. Well, ladies and gentlemen, parental guidance is default. It has to be there. It is not something that you can ask them to do. The role of the parents is default. But the mere fact that teenagers play video games at night is not because their parents are not looking. It's because they're trying to, I've already accepted 2 PIs, thank you. It's the mere fact that they're trying to hide from their parents. They know that their parents say it's wrong. That they are trying to hide from their parents and play it at night. This affects their mentality in school and academically. I'm moving on to state the points given by I've already accepted 2 PIs. Congrats. My second speaker said academic performances. I am very sure teachers here will realize when they're teaching in class, there will be a group of students or at least a few standing at the back staring blankly at them. Why? Because in their head what is going on is a game. I want to go home, I want to get to the next level. That want to go to the next level is enough to distract them from their education. Thus, their academic performances will decrease. Also, increasing academic thought, increasing aggressive thoughts. I've accepted 2 PIs, thank you. Increasing aggressive thoughts. Video games. The most popular video game now is Counter-Strike, which is a shooting game where you're a first-person shooter and you're supposed to shoot the other person. The fact that when you get shot, that anger is going to make you aggressive. You're going to feel that anger for, oh my god, I got shot. But of course it's not going to happen in real life, so I don't see how it can help us in real life, but it's actually making you more aggressive, making the anger that is caused by these games. Also paranoia. Basically, my second speaker has already talked about behavioral addiction. There are a few parts of behavioral addiction. It causes dependence both psychologically and physically. Paranoia is a psychological dependence to the game, always wanting to be in there, always thinking of the game and not being able to concentrate of life in the real world. What is our life in this real world? So this paranoia will lead you to not being able to realize what life really is, and you will end up living a virtual life in the virtual world, ladies and gentlemen. So before I take my seat, I would like to reaffirm our stand that this house believes that video games can lead to behavioral issues because it is very addictive. Thank you.
I now call upon Panyih, the third debater from the opposition, to present his case.
Right, a very good afternoon. I would like to bid to the man, Mr. Speaker, precise timekeeper, and as well I see our handsome timekeeper here, fair and wise adjudicators, worthy opponents, fellow comrades, and of course, to the noble members of the House. At this very moment, standing here as the Emperor of Rebuttal, which have been neglected by the government side, I, as the third Speaker of the Opposition, am truly very excited to rebut, reveal and lambaste all senseless points presented by the government members regarding the motion of our debate today, which is this House believes that video games can lead to behavioral issues in students. Right, moving on to the first point presented by our respected Prime Minister, she stated that video games leads to paranoia. And mind you, ladies and gentlemen, members of the House, paranoia is actually a disease. It is not a behavioral issue. That disease causes behavioral issue. I guess you misunderstand that concept. And she stated as well, when you are paranoid, you are not able to make rational decisions. Well, you forgot to take into account the existence of parents that guides students.
Yes, again and again. If really you're trying to tell us because a video game does not cause behavioral issues, then why is the role of parent required there?
Mind you, parents are obliged. It is the obligation of parents to guide students. Whatever things happen, it is the responsibility of the parents, yes.
You yourself said that it's the obligation of the parents. So if the duty is default, then why is your first point the role of parents or parental role?
Because they have not treated well. They understand that they have the obligation, but they do not understand that they have to carry it out. And moving on to the next point, and that point can be rebutted with this example as well. Well, where my chief opposition actually gave an example on student A and student B playing the same video game, but they are of the same gender, but they are different families. Hold on, let me settle this. They are from different families. I'm sorry, but one of them actually do not have behavioral issue because parents, that guy's parents told him about that video games are just playing entertainment and they are virtual, they are not real. Yes.
Just now you said that parental role is, your point stated that about parental role. So, video games can lead to behavioral issues in students. What you are saying is parental role will prevent that from happening. But video games can lead to behavioral issues in students. You are forgetting the point that video games can lead to behavioral issues in students. You are now saying that parental role can prevent it from happening. Thus, video games can lead to behavioral issues in students.
So, you are stating that parents are not required. So you are only stating that, hold on, I haven't settled my speech. So you are stating that video games can lead to behavioral issues in students. I see that you are standing in the government anyway. We right here are declining the motion where we don't support that video games cannot. We support video games cannot lead to behavioral issues in students. I'm rejecting that. So moving on to the next point, which is presented by the Deputy Prime Minister, which is under the key phrase of, I don't see a key phrase here, just merely stated about promoting aggressive behavior. And from what I can understand from their presentation, that the point in that shows aggressive behavior, people who play video games will have aggressive behavior. I see that is just an extra elaboration from the first speaker's points. So I guess we don't have a first point actually. Yes.
You misunderstood the points. Paranoia is the one to play the game, the dependence on the game, whereas aggressive behavior is speaking aggressively, having aggressive thoughts. There are two different things, please understand.
So she is stating that everyone who plays video game will not not eat and will not like drink, will not go to the toilet. I'm rejecting that. Yeah, it's irrelevant because she stated that when they are paranoid, they will like be dependent on the game. Yes.
Again, we like to repeat, we're saying video games can lead to behavioral issues. Can, Mr. Opposition, can.
Yeah, I understand that the word, I understand the meaning of the word can. But we standing here, I am standing here to oppose you. I am standing here to prove to you that video games cannot lead to behavioral issues in students. And hold on. I'm repeating, video games cannot lead to behavioral issues in students. And another point, moving on to the next point, which is under the key phrase of academic performance. So when they play too much, he stated that when students play too much of video games, they become dependent and they will have the thinking of the games lingering in their mind to like settle the game into the next level. Well, I'm telling you that if all of us here who are playing video games have that same mentality, all of us will excel. All of us here will be sitting and standing here to debate as well. Now I will strengthen the points presented by my side. The first point, which is presented under the key phrase of parental bonding. My chief of opposition stated that when parents carry out their obligations, they actually can prevent behavioral issues in students. The next point presented, which is under the key phrase of entertainment medium. Entertainment, video games were created in the first place as a form of entertainment, and this entertainment actually acts as a relaxation towards our monotonous life. While you entertain yourself, you actually indirectly learn something from the game. As what they have, their government side have been always presenting, they have only like take into account about video game violence type of video games. And they are not actually talking about all video games causing behavioral issues. And he or she actually stated about a mother being, first he stated 22-year-old mother actually, I thought it's 1 minute. Yeah, I see you don't understand the rules of the game. So, and then, I guess that's all. Yeah, your points are like senseless. So, for these papers which I wrote can be crushed. And with that, I end my battle. Thank you.
We have heard the contention of both the government and the opposition teams. It marks the end of the primary speeches. Both teams will be given 3 minutes to prepare for their reply speech from now.
Othniel, really my this one I got I feel like okay, some people have